What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. I am your host, Vince Perri, your entrepreneurial exit strategist, business broker, and a little bit of everything when it comes to business, to be honest. And today we've got a very, very special guest. I'm really, really excited about this. But before I tell you who the guest is, make sure that you like, subscribe, follow, share, and do everything. We've got so much stuff coming at you with the show. It's going to be very beneficial for you if you just watch some of it, and then you could fall into the rabbit hole as well. So without further ado, Anay, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here and chat with you.
I am very excited to have you because I have been trying to get a more diverse group of guests onto my show, interesting people onto my show, and I think you are the perfect fit. So I'm going to do a quick little intro of you, but I would rather you do it yourself as well. But Anay, you are a doctor of pharmacy. You are a board certified, I'm going to butcher this, pharmacotherapy specialist. You are a board certified oncology pharmacist. Your current roles are you oversee the pharmacy management in a cancer care center, and you also lead outpatient infusion pharmacies.
You got it.
Did I get all that right?
Yeah, you did.
That's a lot of stuff that you do.
Yeah, it sounds very heavy.
All right, so before I get into the questions, and just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a practicing pharmacist for over 23 years, all in the oncology setting. As we know, cancer is something that impacts everybody. There is not many people that haven't been touched by cancer. So it's an incredible mission and an honor to be working in that setting for the majority of my career. Pharmacists have very unique positions in the healthcare industry. They work closely with physicians in helping determine the correct treatment, the appropriateness of treatment. And in the setting particularly that I work in, we create the infusions and the treatments, and we work in an outpatient setting. So we have patients that, are touched by this disease. Mm-hmm. They come to our centers and they have access to the latest breakthrough therapies in terms of clinical trials, but also access to standard of care treatment. So they come, they're treated, and, they get to go home the same day in our outpatient setting. And these are infusions, so they're IV, so they're not necessarily orals that they're getting at the centers that I oversee. But it's really an important mission. We help prevent and cure cancer. And so we work with thousands of patients. And it's an incredible honor to work within this space. It's challenging because it is difficult, dealing with this patient population and helping find those cures and those positive outcomes. But at the end of the day, it's really honorable work. And so I get to work with a team of exceptional individuals, pharmacists and pharmacy technicians that get to do this work every day.
Now, most people think of pharmacy as like working at Walgreens or CVS and being back there and filling prescriptions. What you do is much, much different than that. Can you paint a picture of the complexity behind just the entire investigational drug services and outpatient pharmacy and cancer research and everything that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, pharmacists have different paths they can take. Certainly retail, what you're referring to, is really an important avenue. The majority of the population is on some sort of medication to treat their chronic conditions. And so while that's important, the oncology space is a little more specialized. And so we have disease site specialists, depending on the cancer type, that work closely with providers and working on, bringing these treatments to the forefront and treating patients. We also work a lot in the space of, doing investigational drug services at our cancer center, which means the new drugs that are coming to the market, before they come to a market, there's a developmental phase. So we have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials, where this is where we're really testing these treatments to see if they're efficacious and worthwhile for our patients and they have those outcomes. So in certain places, you have access to these late-breaking therapies through clinical trials. So it's really supporting investigational drug services is an aspect of pharmacy services where you have teams dedicated in this research space, treating these patients, making sure we're following these protocols, and helping ultimately bring these therapies to FDA approval, which is what we do, so that there's broader access to patients across the nation. So that's the investigational drug services piece. Then our outpatient infusion centers, what we do is we're treating patients on these already FDA-approved drugs, bringing these therapies, helping them get access. And the pharmacists in these areas, they're making sure the drugs are clinically appropriate, that the patients have the labs to receive the treatments. Does it require dose adjustment? They're doing supportive care management. A lot of these treatments, while they're tackling cancer cells, they also have different side effects. So we're mitigating them. We're educating patients. We're improving outcomes and access. So pharmacists in the oncology space have a variety of roles and certainly a lot of impact in that. It's a very highly specialized role and often requires a lot of training. We have residencies dedicated to just oncology. There's different certifications and different education materials out there that pharmacists can use. They have to stay on top of their game because I'm not sure if anyone follows in this space, but there's a lot of new drugs being approved all the time.
Right.
So they have to really stay on top of their game on what's, the new emerging treatments.
How does it work like behind the scenes? Like how are you able to when a drug comes in and it goes up for clinical trial, like how does it all work behind the scenes in being able to manage all of that stuff?
Yeah, so within the clinical trial space, patients are enrolled in these clinical trials. If they meet the eligibility criteria, then they'll come to a center, they'll get treated. What the pharmacists are doing, they're, creating the treatment order sets. There's a lot of documentation that's required for these clinical trials. They're making sure that's in place. They're making sure that we're following the protocol from a clinical perspective, also from an operations perspective. We also have to make the drug and compound it. So that's a pretty complex process. And within all pharmacies in the outpatient space and also in the inpatient space, we have what we call IV and clean rooms that, we're making and preparing these drugs in an aseptic fashion, in a sterile fashion. So there's a lot of complexity with that. And our pharmacy technicians play a key role in that and making those. And then our pharmacists validate them and then we dispense them for administration.
I have to ask, because this is the part that fascinates me the most. How are you able to stay in control of the screw ups? Because I can imagine the amount of protocols and checklists and systems and process that you have to have in place. Are you overseeing all that to make sure that properly gets implemented and is done correctly? Or is that something that's handed to you from, say, the FDA? And do they give you protocols on making sure on how to handle all these things? Like, how does all that work?
There's definitely a lot of resources, regulatory bodies.
Because if one thing goes wrong, the person could die.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we have a lot of different resources. We have regulatory bodies. We have, ISMP, safety, the Institute of Safe Medical Practices. We have medication practices. We have, the FDA. We have Joint Commission. We have so many different regulations and guidelines that help us practice safely. Within our spaces, what we do is we have a checks and balances system.
Okay.
So we have independent checks, right? So we know that oncology treatments are high-risk medications. So we have independent checks within our pharmacists. So we'll have one pharmacist that will be validating the dosing, the clinical appropriateness, and then an independent pharmacist that will double check that. Okay. And so we do checks and balances, not just within our pharmacy area, but also with nursing and our providers that are prescribing. So it's really checks and balances and different checks and different time points to make sure that we're, dispensing appropriately and prescribing appropriately.
I'm looking for the book now, and I can't seem to find it in my library here because it's an amazing book, and it's written by an oncology a cancer. Oh my God, a cancer. Oh my God, I can't think. No,
prescriber, physician, a patient.
Person. I can't even think of the word right now. I'm going blank. A guy who does. I can't think of the word, but the name of the book is called The Checklist Manifesto.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, by Atul Gawande.
Okay.
He's oh my God, the people that cut people open.
A surgeon.
Yes. Jesus, it did not come out of my mouth.
It's
yes.
Okay.
Yes, specializes in cancer.
Okay.
And he wrote this book, I don't know how long ago, but he talks about The checklist, the original checklist, it really came about. I don't know when, probably 100 years ago, just checking for vitals.
Oh,
That's like one of the first checklists that ever came out. And then the book goes on. It just talks about the importance of just making sure that the only way that you're going to get things right, it doesn't matter how much you know or how much you think you know. When the pressure comes on and, you actually have to perform whatever it is that you have to perform, there needs to be some kind of standardized checklist. How many checklists would you say that you guys have?
Well, I can tell you in investigational drug services, definitely there's a lot of checklists. And, I don't want to underestimate the value of technology.
Yeah.
So we've utilized technology within our pharmacy spaces to help with these safety and quality checks, right? So we have an electronic health record, we have a pharmacy system, we have IV workflow where we're now barcoding. There's barcoding, we're scanning barcodes to make sure it's the right drug, it's the right diluent. We have, to your point, checklists and standardized recipes on how we compound, so everyone's doing the same thing at all times. So we do have predefined checks, as I was talking about checks and balances.
Right.
And sometimes those are documented within the electronic health record, but really leveraging technology to help enhance the work that we're doing. Where before it was more manual, there's definitely a lot of tools available now to help enhance that and complement what we're doing from a manual perspective, but also bring in some automation to help prevent those errors, if that makes sense, and enhance quality.
How are the tools, and how do you ensure that people are actually following the checklist step by step? Are the tools something like it won't move on to the next thing until you actually do the one thing?
Yeah, so we have an IV workflow solution that we're utilizing and that most cancer centers and most hospitals have implement. So it's pretty standard. Where, when they're compounding, they're scanning the product, they're scanning the diluent that they're using to make the compound. And if it's incorrect, it'll be a red scan. It'll be a hard stop. And then, it'll force, the pharmacy technician to pull the right product. And then it goes to the next step. They take pictures. We even have scales, gravimetric, where you can weigh the product to make sure it's the right, amount being placed in the bag. And then it goes to a pharmacist that'll validate that. So again, I think within healthcare overall, and specifically within pharmacy, there is a lot of tools that we use right now that help kind of make sure that we minimize those errors, minimize that by enhancing the work that our teams are doing.
That's awesome. I'm assuming that when you're looking for the next hire, and I already know it's a very extensive process, but high attention to detail has to be probably at the top.
Oh my God, absolutely. I think for pharmacy, attention to detail, I think when you're looking to bring someone to your team, there's a few things. There's the aptitude, there's the qualifications, the ability to do the job. But then there's also the fit.
Yeah.
The fit for the team, that kind of dynamic, and looking for those two kind of checks is kind of what I look for.
Okay.
Believe it or not, when I'm hiring, I'm also looking for, are they a good human being?
Sure.
Do they understand the purpose and the work that we do? Do they understand that mission? Because, we work in a high-paced, dynamic environment.
Right.
There's a lot of demands. There's a patient at the end. So do they understand that purpose so that, some days are easier, some days are harder, but that they can withstand that?
Right.
Because they know at the end of the day, the purpose that what we're doing, we're taking care of patients.
Right.
And so that has to remain at the forefront. And, when it comes to pharmacy, there's different fields and there's different paths. There's industry, we spoke about retail, there's teaching. There's the institutional setting where I work directly with patients. There's roles that are more patient forward facing or involved with patients, but then there's other roles that are a bit more behind the scenes. And so I think a good fit for me and my team that I'm looking for is really understanding that purpose, being open to learning and growing, having the aptitude, of course, and the ability to do the job. So I think it's a multitude of things, because when you have the right people on your team with the right mindset and the right attitude, then you can develop an unstoppable team.
Right.
Yeah, nothing can break you. Things are going to come your way left and right. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have days where you have call outs. You're going to have extreme situations. But the team works well together.
Yeah.
Because they understand the ultimate mission.
Well, I mean, you've always I've known you for quite some time, and you've always been pretty good at that. And one thing that I've always admired about you and I is that you really are always constantly trying to do what's best for the people on your team. That it's not about you. That you're trying to always constantly develop them any way that they can, personally and professionally as well, for them to continue to have the want to continue to get better in their career as well. And I think that's very, very important in leadership that people don't understand. A lot of bad leaders are just trying to further themselves and really focusing on their development and using their troops around them to elevate themselves, when I think that's completely backwards. And it took me a long time to actually understand that the more you build your team and build your troops, the more ultimately it builds yourself as well. And rising tide lifts all ships,
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. I think you're right. When you invest in people genuinely and you connect to them and you invest in not just, them, what you need from them and work, and you care about them, they're more open to feedback. They're more open. They're more invested.
I tell people I tell people that they'll fall on the sword for you.
Oh yeah. That inspires a sense of loyalty, right? Like that's what happens. So I think it's all about human connection for me. I enjoy connecting with people, understanding what's important to them, and helping them achieve their goals in a way feeds my ego.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Exactly. It's so, I tell people, I'm like, look, I'm telling you this because this is for me too. Right? Like, it's selfish what I'm telling you right now, but it's going to be great for you.
It's interesting. It
makes me feel great.
Yeah. There's different things different drivers for people's ego, right? Like you have to understand what feeds your ego, what feeds your soul, what, energizes you. And for me, it's helping people. And so it's very natural to me. I don't have to think about it. It happens very authentically, organically. And I think that's how I felt kind of in this field. Pharmacy is about helping people achieve their, health outcomes, through treatment. And, but when you translate that to the people that you work with, when you translate that to your direct reports, to the leaders that you lead, and you invest in them and you understand what's important to them, which may be different for you, but you help them achieve those outcomes. Honestly, I can derive more personal satisfaction when I see someone succeed, whether professionally or personally, and it's a person that, is close to me and somehow is a part of that journey.
Right.
In whatever capacity, that, gives me so much personal satisfaction, not just with the people that I work with, but, with our patients. And it energizes me, it drives me, it motivates me and inspires me to work harder.
I know you care about your people. We love our people, blah, 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 blah. What I want to ask you though is how do you balance empathy with accountability?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I think that's something that a lot of leaders struggle with. I see extremes, right? Sometimes, you work for leaders that are very, when it comes to accountability, they have no room for humanity, and then there are other leaders that just don't know when to flip that. For me, it's about setting expectations, working with people. What I find is that a lot of times people don't even know that they're not meeting the mark. They're not even aware that they're kind of unaware that, they're not performing to your expectation. So I think through that, a lot of open dialogue, but setting the expectation. And I think there's, whenever you have a team, you'll have one or two really high performers. And then you want everyone to perform at that level. And that's not realistic. So whenever I'm having conversations with people in general, I'm like, okay, what is the expectation, the average expectation to perform this job?
You ask yourself that?
Yeah, I ask myself and I ask others. We can't compare everybody to the highest performer on the team. So what does coming every day, doing their job, meeting expectations look like? And is that clear? And are you having one-on-one conversations? And sometimes it's also a gap in training. People are not comfortable, or they don't know what they're doing, or they don't know they're doing it wrong. Are you having those dialogues and doing it in a way that's not punitive? Doing it in a way that I'm invested in your growth because I know you're capable. And then there are times that people are not capable, and being realistic about that. And then, helping find what I call a right fit. Because there are times, and thankfully it's been very few times in my career, that I've worked with individuals that are just not a right fit for that role in my team at that time. And helping and coming together and working with them and coaching them and having open dialogue and meeting people where they're at. Because there's another thing too, Vince. Sometimes people are going through hard times in their life, right? We have phases in our life that we're just, maybe personally going through hard times, and having empathy and compassion and flexing and being adjustable and, being flexible. I think meeting people where they're at is important. But I think at some point, if the performance is not there and the behavior, to me, the behavior sometimes is the hardest because it has to do with your values.
Right.
It's hard to change people's values, but you got to set those expectations. And then at some point, you coach them, you talk to them, you invest in them. And then at some point, if they're not a good fit, then it's time to part ways.
Yeah.
And helping them find, I can't tell you how many people I've helped find jobs,
yeah,
that are a right fit for them. Because then they thrive, the team thrives, the organization thrives, and in my setting, the patients thrive, right?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think a lot of people, I don't think, we're humans, right? So we're capable of amazing things, and sometimes it's just not the right fit for you.
Yeah.
But you basically broke down what I always, I call A players, B players, and C players.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
A players are the ones that are going to go above and beyond, that they've got also vision, and they're going to even give you new ideas on what can be done. And that's going to be like 20% or maybe even less. And then your B players, people always think, oh, you don't want B players. No, I think the B players are the kind of the engine that sort of, they do what they're supposed to do. They don't make mistakes. They don't go above and beyond necessarily, but that's what you got your A players for. And then the C players, they just need to go. That's what I just said.
We can help the C players. We help them achieve their outcomes, and maybe it looks like in a different place.
You taught me a term years ago, which you probably don't remember, but I think it's probably the most important skill or thing to have, whether it's innate or you could learn as a leader, and that's emotional intelligence.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You recommended me that book years ago.
Yeah.
Not for me, though, for one of my employees.
It's, it's so important. I'm happy to share that I'm in a place where it takes a lot to shake me. Right. And things, I'm dealing with situations every day, whether it's personally or professionally, and, just remaining level-headed, just remaining objective, and really just, okay, what's the right thing to do? Not what's the right thing for me, not what's the right thing for that person. And just like, okay, what's the right thing to do in the situation? And being able to quickly move through things, not being reactive, not taking things personal. I mean, there are times where people are talking to me about my team or about my approach, and they're challenging me, but I still don't take it personal. I see it as business. What is the best outcome? What's the right thing to do? And always assuming positive intent. And I think oftentimes people don't assume positive intent.
You think so?
Yeah, I think that there are instances where, they take things really personal. They think like, someone's attacking them or it's about them, but it really isn't. It's about something much bigger than just our ego and our feelings. So being able to like move quickly through that and to focus on what's important. I think, as a leader, you set the stage, you set the disposition. If you're a leader that you're freaking out about everything all the time and you're getting pissed off and you're talking smack about people, your team sees that and they pick up on that. But if you're a leader that you're calm, you're cool, collected, focused on the mission, positive, then they feel supported and secure. It creates like a stable environment.
Was there a time in your life that you kind of realized that this is what you were born to do? Being a leader? Because I mean, I've always known you as in a leadership position, And you've always got great advice, and you think. I love having conversations with you because like you can tell like you're digesting the information, you're thinking about what it is and how you're going to respond. And
it's funny. I don't, I didn't set out. There's a lot of people, particularly in pharmacy school, they know they want to be a pharmacy director. They want to go into leadership. They pursue like leadership. I never thought that. I always just wanted to make a difference, work with patients. And, everyone needs a mentor. So ironically, my mentor is my older brother who has a lot of, experience in different fields. Well, in his field, is a subject matter expert and is in leadership. And because I think I work well with others and I have good, healthy working relationships, opportunities would come my way. And I was having a conversation with my brother that really just changed the trajectory of how I saw leadership. And it was pretty funny. He was like, do you think you're a good pharmacist? And this was when I was, in the hospital space, working as a clinical pharmacist, rounding, working with patients directly and providers. Really enjoyed that aspect of my career. And he asked me, he goes, do you think you're a good pharmacist? And, I wasn't very humble. I was like, yeah, I'm a great pharmacist. And he's like, well, imagine if you could create a team of great pharmacists, just like you. Or even pharmacists that could be better than you and surpass the things you're able to do. And you would create that team. You would build that team. You would create the environment for those people to thrive. And there could be 10 or 20 mini Anays or even better than Anays. How would you feel? And that just blew my mind.
Nice.
Thinking about paving the way for the others and fighting for that and advocating for that. And allowing other people that access to do that kind of work and creating that environment and telling stories to help justify that support that they need. And that changed my trajectory about leading, saying, okay, this is the next step that I have to do to be able to continue to do this work. I think that we go back to like drivers. There are people that are driven, they're very ambitious and they're looking to grow and they're looking for promotions. They're looking, to be a manager, to be a leader, to be a VP, to be a CEO. And that's what drives them. To get to those places, they have to do the work.
But that's not leadership.
But they have to do the work, right? They have to execute. But if the driver is just that, they won't last very long.
I think it comes to a point where you need to sort of take a step back because that's how you get ahead, sure, but ultimately that's not what leadership is about. It's not
long-standing. Right. They won't be as successful if that's their ambition is only those promotions, chasing the money, the title, the prestige.
Well, there's John Maxwell talks about, John Maxwell?
Yeah, absolutely.
He talks about the 5 levels of leadership. And I can't remember them exactly right now, but eventually you get to a point where it's like you're a leader, they'll follow you because of your title. Then they'll follow you because of your results that you've had. Then they'll follow you for it. But once you get into like the 4th and 5th level of leadership, it's not about any of those things anymore. It's more about sort of what can you do for them? What can you do for your team? And then that's when you sort of get into that next level.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's a leadership mistake that you made that really was a good teaching lesson for you?
So it's interesting, I've made a few mistakes, many, not just one, but there's a theme. Whenever there's a mistake or a failure, something didn't work out the way I expected, it's when I didn't do a good job of getting everyone's input and buy-in. I think decision-making is a shared responsibility. And even though...
Very democratic of you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a shared responsibility, but it's also, there are leaders that are very authoritative. And I can tell you, while I have authority, I don't need to use it very often.
Interesting.
And I say that because I work with my teams. I get their input, their buy-in.
But you have the final say.
Yeah, but by the time we're making that decision, everyone's on board, or the key stakeholders are on board, right? So I think in the past, when I have failed to get everyone's input, buy-in, create that space for them to challenge decisions, is where maybe things didn't work out as intended or things failed because I didn't have the buy-in of the people that are going to do the work. And I think that so one thing that I've learned is to have a lot of patience. There could be something I see from a workflow perspective that I really want to flip the switch tomorrow, but I need everyone's buy-in. And I need to tell that story. I need to get their input. I need to give them space to challenge and tweak and adjust what I'm thinking and work with them so that it can succeed. Because if you just make decisions and you don't have the buy-in of your team, you don't take their input, they're going to be poor decisions. Mm-hmm. Decisions that may not work out, things that may fail. And I'll tell you, I've learned the most when I think of the great teachers of my life, both personally and professionally, by difficult people that gave me a hard time. It wasn't the people that were fans of Anay. It wasn't, those are the ones that you learn the most from and you grow.
How many people would you say you oversee? Like,
I think in my current role, it's probably around 80 to 90.
How do you manage decision-making for your 80 or 90 people?
Yeah.
To the people, because you also have people where you're at. You have there's a lot of levels.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Okay, because again, I'm an entrepreneur. There's basically just like 2 or 3 levels, right?
I know.
There's not much.
What a blessing.
In a corporate environment, I mean, it's like the military. It's like sort of endless, right?
Yeah.
So how are you able to manage both sides? The under you. I hate to use those terms, but you know what I mean.
No,
like
of course. You're like in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Like how do you level
balance,
up and level down?
How do you balance decision making?
We have initiatives that we need to go live with or we need to implement or workflow enhancement. So we got to work with both teams. And what's interesting, I've been saying this a lot lately because I work with, nursing, I work with providers, I work with payers, I work with so many different departments. Storytelling comes into play. So storytelling and being a good storyteller of your work, of what you do, of what needs to happen, of why is so imperative. Because if you go into a meeting and they're like, we need this from pharmacy, well, we can't do that. That's not going to work. And, but going in and explaining, okay, this is our process and telling that story. And this is what we need to make this happen, and being open and collaborative. I think that's really important in leadership roles.
I just sat through an hour presentation at a conference on Monday. Kendra Hall is her name. And I'll recommend you her book. That the whole thing was about the importance of telling stories.
Yeah.
In sales and leadership and all of it. And she gave a whole framework on how to actually tell
Oh my God, I want to see it.
It was a great presentation.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Funny you mentioned that.
Yeah, it's interesting, if you can tell a story and advocate and explain how you can change the direction of things and people understand. I never really say no. I try to say, okay, how can we make this work? Let's be open. What do we need? Especially when we're talking about taking care of patients and we're talking about being more efficient and we're talking about scalability and safety and quality. It's, if something is there that, can help with any of those things, I got to explore it. And not just me, I got to explore it with the rest of my leaders, with my team. We got to, give that space to explore.
How much of your job is administrative stuff compared to the actual leadership part of it?
It's funny. My job is a lot of meetings. So
imagine.
Yeah, it's a lot of meetings and, we're talking about different things. I could, be in a meeting talking about a new drug we're going to launch. I could be talking about a meeting on how to reimburse the drug. I could be in a meeting about workflow efficiencies in one area. It could be a meeting talking with team members and it's a lot of meetings, but I'm going to tell you, I'm a problem solver. I enjoy solving problems.
You've always said that.
So in these meetings, and I'm like, all right, I'm trying to bring it to where's the solution, or how do we solve this problem? There are people that they need their safe space to vent about things that aren't working, and people can talk about things that aren't working or not going to work or suck for a very long time if you let them. But at some point in my mind, I need to wrap it up into, okay, what's next steps?
Right.
How are we going to solve this? Let's get some reasonable action items. Let's focus on 2 to 3 goals. What's next steps? I tend to do that rather quickly sometimes, but I got to let people, express their case, talk. I'm from Miami,
Mm-hmm.
so we're pretty fast paced, you know? And so learning to kind of slow down, like give people the space to talk about their viewpoint. And then, you know, at the right time, when they're in the right mindset, because sometimes in the conversation, it's just all we're going to do is vent because they're not in the mindset to talk about solutioning. And
Solutioning.
yes, and I'm excited when we talk about solutioning. I love problem solving. So a lot of problem solving, working with just different partners. It's really fascinating when you work like in an institution setting and you work with different players. To your point, like in a small company or a small corporation where you're the owner, this is not working. You can change it tomorrow.
Yes.
You can change it in the next hour.
Right.
You know, have to go to committees, present, get buy-in. It's a much longer journey, but man, once you talk through all of the things that can go wrong and right, you know, by the time that you make a decision, you have like a good workflow.
What are some of the most, I'm going to shift here a little bit into, you know, what you actually do in regards to, you know, outpatient infusion and stuff like that. What are some of the most underappreciated things involved with the outpatient infusion pharmacies and what's involved?
Underappreciated, you know, our team members.
I read before we came on, I read 90% of cancer treatment is in outpatient.
Yeah. In the outpatient setting, there are types of cancers like leukemias, induction regimens, bone marrow transplant, things that are in the inpatient setting. But then, you know, at some point, particularly what we talk about like solid tumors, and even some of those blood cancers can be treated in the outpatient setting.
And basically, I know from experience, unfortunately, my wife, of course, she would just basically go in for the chemo treatment and then come out and that was it.
Yeah, we are always looking to improve that patient experience. We understand that, you know, these patients have lives, they have families they want to get to. Some of them, you know, are not in the curative intent, unfortunately, and we really want to optimize their time. So how to make sure in that space that we're being as efficient, we're being as safe, we're protecting their time and their experience, you know, being pleasant. We have an incredible team. I mean, I can't understate the value of nurses. You know, they're the ones that are talking to the patient. They're administering the drugs. They see the relationships, having that compassion, empathy, that connection. From a pharmacy perspective, you know, we're, you know, working with the providers, we're working with nursing, we're getting the drugs out, we're making sure, you know, we have all our checklist items. We have supervisors within those spaces and leads that are really just putting out the fires, any problems, any outstanding issues. And I think that their roles, they really need a lot of support and we need to acknowledge them. Being in a manager, you know, supervisor, lead, dealing with day-to-day problems and solutioning and solving and helping patients, I think that those roles are not always as acknowledged as much as they should. And then, of course, you know, the frontline staff, the ones that actually do the work, acknowledging the work that they're doing. Pharmacy sometimes is a little bit behind the scenes. We do counsel patients. We do go out and talk to our patients, but that doesn't happen necessarily with our pharmacy technicians, which it's another role that I think requires so much acknowledgement. They're the ones that make the drugs.
Right.
You know, so they're so valuable in our setting. So I think just pharmacy in general, working with patients, their roles are really integral to that treatment setting.
How's technology playing into outpatient, and what are some of the new trends that are happening? Is anything that you can share, especially in regards to artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I think within pharmacy, we're still figuring out how to use AI. I can tell you some neat stuff I've done. I used to have to do Excel sheets, right? To like determine how many shifts I need to cover, how many staff I need in any particular role. I can now plug all that into AI and it'll do me like a nice recommendation. And then you still have to validate it.
Yeah.
But it's been really integral. Or just looking up information that, you know, you'd have to look in, okay, what is the reimbursement? What are the links? What are the resources? But it all requires validation. I particularly like Google Notebook LLM. I don't know if a lot of people
are using that now.
Yeah. And what I like about that is that, you know, while maybe the other forums are utilizing the generalizable knowledge of the whole internet, with Notebook LLM, you're able to put the resources and the guidelines.
And it gives you the straight facts.
Yes,
Yeah.
from the resources you're feeding it. So then, makes me more comfortable in that space. But I can certainly see, I know there's a lot of things that AI is doing, especially with research. It's
I was just going to say, because you were involved in clinical research a lot as well. So is there anything new with there?
Yeah. So, when it comes to research, certain EHRs have access to all of this patient data. So then looking for trends and, in breast cancer patients, they all have this genetic mutation. Maybe we should focus on creating drug therapies based on this mutation. So now we have access to all this information from different patients, from different institutions, patient populations, that we're able to drive what we should be focusing on from a drug development standpoint.
You've been in this for how long? How long have you been?
22 years.
You've been a pharmacist for 22 years, but you've been in oncology for
the whole time.
The whole time.
Yeah, I graduated.
How have you seen cancer research and cancer treatment?
It is a really exciting time right now in oncology. Over the last decade, we've moved from like traditional chemotherapy, targets rapidly growing cells. And that includes our healthy cells.
Right.
So lots of side effects, right? Hair loss, GI issues, bone marrow, your immune suppression. We're moving more into the space of immunology.
Okay.
And precision medicine. So it's using your own immune system, enhancing your immune cells, and particularly your T cells, enhancing your immune system to fight cancer, and harnessing that. So things like CAR T, TILs, TCR therapy. I'm sure you've heard about these, but we basically remove your own T cells and we enhance them. And we enhance them outside in a lab. We enhance them and we expand them, and then we reinfuse them. And then we're seeing durable responses, durable remissions, durable outcomes in cancers, in settings for, lymphoma, multiple myeloma, some leukemias, and that are relapsed and refractory to treatment. You're seeing outcomes we never saw before, and these patients are still responding. There's this really cool class of drugs called immune checkpoint inhibitors that are just blowing up, and we're getting new ones every day, and we're focusing on different targets. And we're seeing patients that were like on 4th, 5th, and 6th line of treatments responding and having, again, durable responses, maybe even cures with these treatments, utilizing our own immune system. So they're less toxic than traditional chemotherapy, and they have different side effects because we're revving up your immune system. But it's really been a remarkable enhancement in the treatment and how we're treating cancers. So I think it's all about immunology right now. It's all about T cells. It's all about, we have this other class called bispecifics. Again, it's an exciting time to be in oncology because our treatment strategies are becoming more efficient, more targeted, more personalized. Outcomes are better, side effects are less. So really, really exciting time. A lot of clinical research and trials in that setting, a lot of approved standard care in that. And, for any students that are interested in medicine, I tell them, think about immunology. Immunology is the way of the future in looking at your immune system and harnessing that.
Yeah, because you're not bringing a foreign agent in, you're just enhancing your own immunity.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly.
Cure always, I learned this from my wife, is cure is such a funny word when it comes to cancer. Everybody's like, oh, they're hiding the cure for cancer. They have the cure for cancer. But when I finally understood it, when it was explained to me that cancer cells are in your body all the time, no matter what, like you can't ever really get rid of it. It's just when they become bad, I guess, right? That's when they start attacking you, and that's what happens. But I feel like we've come to a place with a lot of different cancers that if you catch it early enough.
Oh, for sure.
Like it used to be a death sentence.
Yeah.
I don't see it. I mean, I've lived with it now with my wife who's been in it for, we've been together for 14 years.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, no, it's come to, it used to be, I feel like it used to be more of a death sentence. And now I feel like if you catch it early enough, there's so much stuff out there.
There's, of course, surgery, radiation, there's different modalities. Definitely if you catch it early. But even if you look at, when you talk about death sentence, usually was associated with metastasis. Once in the solid tumor setting in breast or prostate or colon, where the cancer spreads to other sites. But now in the metastatic setting, particularly in breast, we have so many different treatment options. So where it used to be, you know, you only have a few months or a short time, it's now years and years. So I think to your point, we have done a lot in that space and we're getting closer.
I just want to say something, and you can say whatever you want to it. But for those out there that think that the holistic way of treating cancer and only the holistic way thinks that you're going to, you know, ultimately heal your cancer, can I just be here to say that it's a mixture of both? Please, please. What do you say to people who are like, I don't want to put that in my body. I don't want to do radiation. I don't want to do chemotherapy. What do you have to say?
That's such a hard conversation, right? Because it has to do with beliefs and values.
Yeah, but it's science too.
Absolutely. And you know, it's funny.
I just heard a story just the other day, and a friend of mine, his sister died.
Oh, wow.
Because she didn't believe in it.
You know,
and she wanted to do it holistically and eat a fruit or whatever it was.
I know, it's sad.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
and Annabelle reads this all the time. She reads these things on these Facebook forums and stuff like that, where they're just like, I'm going to try this and I'm going to try that.
Yeah. You know, when it comes to spirituality and not to get deep into like religion, but when I have talked to patients, you know, during my career, or they've, you know, sought my advice, well, you know, I'm like, why don't you think that God is with the providers, with this research?
He made those things too.
Yeah, like God is in everything. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't know, your perception or limit of God only being in this and not in that is not, you know, why can't you see that God is a part of this research and helping that if you are a spiritual person and you believe? And then just asking questions, talk to your oncologist, ask them, how do these drugs work? I find that there are people that want to know a lot of details and people that don't. And people that just read the internet and get their education from there. But just ask the questions, ask these open-ended questions, have these conversations with your oncologist. Find an oncologist that you feel comfortable enough.
That's probably important.
Yeah, and having that relationship. And if spirituality and your religious beliefs are part of that decision-making, it's okay. Find an oncologist that maybe has the same beliefs so that you can connect and make those decisions, because it is sad, right? We want to optimize our outcomes, but ultimately it's up to the person to make the decision. Because I've heard too, if this is what my outcome is meant to be, I'm embracing it. So we have to respect, but I think having open dialogues, finding people that you can feel comfortable having the open dialogue with, and really understanding all the facts and not limiting your options, right? And making what I call informed decisions. So you need to know what all your options are and what are the outcomes if you go down that road.
By far,
yeah,
the most difficult decision that we ever had to make.
Oh my God, yeah,
was chemotherapy while pregnant.
Yeah,
that was insane.
Yeah,
that was insane.
Yeah, that was one of the most difficult. But talking about spirituality in the universe and whatever you think, when I think about our journey, how I ended up where I ended up working, and when I brought your wife, and I think it was all part of that plan.
Oh, for sure.
For her to be where she was when that happened, to have the absolute best care.
She would work and then go to radiation.
Yeah.
And then go back to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do, yeah, that's the big one. Another a cousin of mine, his mom, I forgot what kind of cancer she got, but she refused to do anything for a while. And it just got worse and worse until finally she had a conversation with Annabelle. And Annabelle was able to convince her.
Oh, that's awesome.
And now she's getting much better.
Yeah. I've seen that happen too. I've seen patients where they refuse to try, they don't want the traditional, treatment. They want to go a more holistic approach, and they do that alone. And to your point, you can do both, right?
I think you should do both.
Yeah, you can do both.
Annabelle was very good at doing both.
Yeah, exactly. And then the outcomes weren't there as they expected, and then they went back to, the
but
traditional.
You only have so much time.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Those things grow pretty fast.
Yeah. I think asking questions, educating yourself, making an informed decision, but ultimately it's up to the person. And, and it's a family decision too, right? And, working with the family.
If you could give just one piece of advice, I guess, particularly for the audience who, like I said, it's business leadership, systems, processes. But if you want to give some advice for life, you can do that as well. What's one good piece of advice that you could give?
Be present.
Nice.
Be present. Be
I always go back. Shout out to Kelly Crow every time. Best advice I ever received is she was a mental health specialist on the show. And I said, what's one piece of advice? What's something you could say? And she just said, practice the pause.
Ooh, I like that.
When things get just crazy and just practice the pause, which is, just get present and try to relax.
I'm in a great time in my life. I have teenage daughters. My son is 12. I have a career that's very fulfilling and demanding. So both professionally and personally, and just it's about the quality. It's about being present. It's about not compromising, and it's about not feeling guilty and showing yourself grace.
Oh, that's my new word, by the way.
Yeah.
My word for 2025 was impactful. And it's slowly, and it still is, but over the last couple of months, just because I've been so, you know me, I'm like 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I've learned to give myself grace and just take a break.
That's a perfect thing.
Yeah. Watch Netflix and chill sometimes. It's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. We have to rest.
You don't always have to be reading another book. But I'm glad that you said that because, I read somewhere the other day, your 20s are great, your 30s are awesome, but what happens in your 40s is that you start to learn a little bit more about what's important. And you think you know when you're young too. First awakening moment for me was like 26 years old, right? So, I had a good understanding. But as you get older, and now I'm launching my second business, or third or fourth business, I guess. I don't know what it is. And I'm honestly taking my time just because I've gone all in 100,000 miles an hour before, and I didn't get any further than I would have gotten if I would have just stayed present and practiced the pause.
Yeah.
And I think as you get older, and things start to sort of fall into place, you learn that just to give yourself grace.
Yeah.
So important.
And I want to say, I also admire you so much.
Oh,
your courage, your endurance, your ability to just see opportunities and go after them. It takes a lot of courage and being brave and being okay with whatever the outcome is. Seeing you flourish through your career, seeing you from when we met a long time ago, seeing you as a father, as a husband, it's, I admire you a lot, Vince.
Thank you, Anay.
Yeah.
Well, I admire you more. That's why I had you on the show. So thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Learned a lot about leadership and about the future of pharmacy and everything. So that was awesome. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.